So, you're not going to get my face today because I still only have one camera. But welcome to Steelfur Speaks, a card game channel on YouTube where I like to talk about lots of different card games. Recently, I've been focusing on Flesh and Blood, and I know a lot of people have been really enjoying the Road to Nationals content. That will resume once we have something more Road to Nationals to talk about. In the meantime, I have 3 games that I kind of want to do a first look review at. I haven't learned to play any of these. I've opened a bit of them, and I kind of asked the channel which one I should look at first. And I'm going to be coming back to MetaZoo and Digimon soon, but we're going to start off with Genesis Battle for Champions. So I haven't opened this yet, and the whole point of this series really is to kind of sit down, review the cards as I'm opening them, see how it feels as an experience, and then also kind of try and figure out whether or not we feel like it's going to be an easy game to learn how to play, right? So first things first, let's have a look at the box. There's reasonably nice art. You know, this kind of monk figure in some sort of maybe force bubble or chi bubble. The box is apparently dedicated to someone called the Vishud clan. Not sure who that is. And then we have a deck list. You know, seems fairly standard. Air elementals, concussion punches, aura surges. Your standard high fantasy, setting product. Genesis Battle of Champions is a tactical collectible card game which combines concept from collectible card games such as deck building and collecting and rules text on cards with familiar concept of tactical games. The tactical aspect of this game comes through in the addition of Arena, a 5x6 board where the core game takes place. You and your summons get to move around the arena each turn, casting spells or attacking your enemies based on the distance and the direction you are facing. This 2-player starter deck gives you everything you need for a friend, you and a friend to immediately jump into the game. So immediately we're thinking, okay, it's a collectible card game, but it has some element of an arena that leads to more of a tactical style. It has tokens, it has dice. It's really nice that they give you dice. That's kind of like a really nice thing. I mean, everyone has dice, and you can kind of assume that people have dice at this stage in gaming. But it's also a nice touch that a game will give you dice if they expect you to play with them, as well as these tokens, which kind of look like little diamonds. I'm sure we'll find out what those are for in a minute. So let's do a first sort of impression of art and card quality, and then we'll go into trying to learn the game. So first, can we open the packets? They come with a pull tab, so we should be able to find a pull tab around here somewhere. There we go. So this, I assume, Idiris is a champion of some description. She has an action that lets you exert her, which I assume is tapping. And there's another cost here which says, I don't know if this will focus for you. I need to get a better card camera. But this says exert and some other number by 5. You can deal a fireball. And you can deal damage to a target you can see, or you can deal damage to a target in the arena. So I assume this is kind of like a champion that you move around the arena, and based on where they're standing, they can do different things. So she's definitely a champion because she's got 25 HP. She's got mana. So I assume this fireball costs mana. And I don't yet know what that symbol is. Whereas you've got smaller summons here that only have 3 HP, the air elementals. That's pretty easy to see the difference between them, which is good. The card quality feels light-ish, I would say. Kind of the sort of thing that I would expect from something like Ashes Reborn or one of those sets that's more direct to players and printed on the cheap. It does seem like we've got action cards as well. I'm not really sure what these symbols on the side mean yet. But the cards look good. The art is actually very good. It kind of leaning into the more dark of dark fantasy. You can see there's a phoenix here. You have wolves. Everything just looks a bit gritty, which is good. Rampage toss, where one of the heroes is just picking up someone and throwing them somewhere. So I think that's quite fun. They have this, the art does actually seem to be quite good. They do seem to have a lot of flavor going on there in terms of combat and things like that. Okay, so let's open boosters or learn to play. May as well open the boosters. I've got them here. I won't go crazy, but you know, booster opening experience is quite good. So how do I tell what rarity cards are? Is it the color at the bottom? Let's see if there's some instructions here. First thing you should know, you should be easily able to tell what rarity a card is when you open a booster pack. That should be like something that's fairly easy to pick up. So this is a mat, which looks like half of an arena. Okay, I think I'm kind of seeing where this is going. So I'm going to have to build an arena out of 2 of these mats. So this isn't so much a learn to play guide as it is a help guide, which, I mean, I guess in this day and age is not so terrible. It's telling me to go to a website to learn how to play, which, I mean, I think is reasonably it's one of those things that I think is a reasonable expectation these days, but I'm not sure if I think it's an entirely fair expectation. So I'm going to bring up that website and we'll talk through it together. It's one of those things I'm not really 100% sold on. If you're opening a starter box experience and they don't tell you how to play, you know, that to me is a miss. I think just in terms of, you know, just in terms of what happens if you don't have a laptop that you can bring to your gaming table. What happens if you have, you know, if you just don't have that, you know, that option to just sit there and have a look at it. Anyway, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So let's hit get started. Learn how to play. Okay, and there's just a video to watch on YouTube. Well, I don't want to do a YouTube video. Well, maybe I'm going to do a YouTube video of me watching their YouTube video. I guess we can do that. I don't really want to watch the entire thing.
It's a tactical collectible card game.
Let's plug in the audio for you guys. You can see I've been watching May the Zoo Be With You. Which I have 0 regrets about.
You take on the role of a champion, battling against.
So I was right. Those are champions, which is good. That's a good start.
Where you can both move around and attempt to cast spells, make attacks, summon allies to fight, all so that you can reduce your opponent's life points to 0. So what do you need to play? Well, first of all, you're going to need a champion.
Okay, so we kind of know what we need to play. I assume I've got it here. I imagine it's 1 champion per deck. Yeah, pick 1 champion, build a deck of 50 cards. Okay. So, I mean, if all my champions are in the left pile and not the right pile, is there a guide on how to build a deck with these? Okay, I've got some resources here. Some mana, which I assume goes under my champion. Okay, I think I have found the missing piece that I was complaining about in the box, is that there is a, let me show you. At the back of the thing, there are these cards that I think will tell you how to play the game. So before you start to construct your timeline, you will need to pick your champion. Your champion will have a list of affiliations it aligns to, which I assume is going to be these symbols on the right-hand side. Maybe. The total sum or chi of all the cards in your timeline must be 250 or less. So it seems that every card has a chi cost, which I assume, which is this in the top right-hand side. If you can see that. So you have to have 250 less chi in your deck. That's interesting. All the cards in the timeline must match the affiliation of your champion. So say I want to include Earth Elemental. I check, does it have these symbols? Yes. Do I have 5 Chi? I do. I can put that in my deck. Okay. That seems to be fairly straightforward. Begin the game, I put the champion in an arena. Which I assume, yeah, along one side of the arena, champions should face each other. Flip a coin to decide who goes first. Timelines are shuffled. Each champion draws 5 cards. The rounds and turn breakdown. Each champion summoned gets their own turn. Rounds are communal. Rounds always start with each champion drawing a card and removing all exertion tokens from themselves and all of their summons. The starting champion always gets the first turn of each round. Turns follow 3 phases: move phase, main phase, end phase. During your move phase, you can do nothing, stay where you are, or you can advance. If you advance, you can move again, or you can go into your main phase. But if you advance twice, you can only go directly to your end phase. So you basically can either move twice, like in D&D, you can do a long movement, or you can do a movement and an action. During your main phase, you can use as many actions or swift abilities you want, as long as you have the resources, which includes exerting your cards. During your end phase, you can play only swift abilities, but as many as you like. At the end of your end phase, you become exerted. Okay, so that's not a bad start. After starting champions, take one of their turns, either with their own champion or with one of their summons, then their opponent takes 1 turn. Champions go back and forth, taking turns one at a time until everyone has taken their turn. So if I have a champion and a summon, I can choose when it's my turn round which one I want to use. After everyone has done their abilities, the end of the round begins, at which point you can only play swift abilities if they don't cost exert. If no champion chooses to play anything, the round ends and the next round begins. Okay, so that seems fairly straightforward. It's kind of following the same sort of flow as Ashes, Rise of the Phoenixborn, where you have... just going to try and raise this up a little bit. Sorry for the shakiness. I'm just trying to get it to focus down on these cards here, because you can't really see them as well. I may have to get a better camera for cards. So it's kind of, yeah, it's the same flow as Ashes Rise to the Phoenixborn. When you have a first player who makes the first move, and they have a main action and a side action, and once they've done a main or a side action, it passes back to your opponent. And that system works quite well because no one is ever doing all of their actions in one go. There's always back and forth with both players being engaged in the gameplay as it goes. And also, you have opportunities to respond to the last thing your opponent did. As well as sort of, just being there, acting with them at real time. So actions have 4 types of speed: action, swift, continuous, and trigger. I think no one's going to be too confused by those, even if you're not coming from a TCG background. Actions obviously get played during the champion or summon's main phase. Swift abilities can be played whenever it makes sense to do so. And in response to other abilities. Continuous abilities are always happening. Triggered abilities happen when the trigger meets them. So when you're advancing with a summon, you move 1 spot. You can either move and rotate. You can either move without rotating, or you can rotate without moving. So they all count as a single movement. So you can basically turn, move and turn, or just rotate. You can only rotate 90 degrees to the left or right. I'm sure that's going to be important. You can only move to a spot that is not occupied, but there's something called alterations, which I assume are enchantments, so you can move on to those spots. Placing a card on a spot does not count whether or not the spot is occupied. So you could summon multiple rabbits into one place, for example, and then they'd move out, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to move back in, which is interesting. When two summons attack each other, the defender's attack goes first, and if the attacker is still alive, then they attack back. That's quite interesting. Normally, games favor the attacker, as in the attacker gets the first hit, and then if the attacker is still alive, or you go with Magic where both players deal the same amount of damage to each other, and you don't really care who is first or second unless they have an ability called First Strike. So it's kind of interesting they've given the advantage to the defender here. They do have a stack, which is quite good from a competitive standpoint. Just the last in, first out stack is really important for competitive games because it allows you to build a whole design space of really sort of interesting, responses and interrupts and things like that. So that's quite good. So the defender wins if they attack first. Yeah. Sorry, I tell a lie. The attacker attacks first because the attacker's attack gets on the stack first, and the defending player's attack goes on the stack second, which means that the defending attack gets resolved first. Interesting. Okay, that is interesting. It's an interesting decision to do it that way. But I guess it doesn't really make sense to have the defender attacking first when the attack is the action. All champions and summons can either be active or exerted. Some abilities cost exert. Summons exert at the end of their turn. You can still play swift abilities if they're exerted. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, good. So here we have a good option to build your first deck. It basically tells you to pick one of two champions, and it says that all of the cards should match with one or two of the champions. Okay, so that's good. That's a good first tick for sort of a learn to play box, is that all of the cards should match one champion. So that means that I could build either of these two decks or either of the other two that they presented, and they should work. That's good. Okay, I was a bit worried there. General FAQ. You can move twice and then use swift abilities. That's fine. That's interesting. And there's a bit of a nice tidbit here about the world of Jalara, which I think is cool, and the affiliations that everyone has. Yeah, and a bit of a game flow chart. Okay, so these cards are actually really good. I think you could probably take these and play a game with them. So you might not actually need the website at all, which is a bit of a relief. There's nothing I dislike more than the fact that you have to go to a different place in order to actually learn how to play the game. So it's good that they've kind of addressed that at the very start. And it seems that my initial confusion with the boosters was over unnecessary because they actually have common written in the bottom corner. You have common, we have starters, which I assume are the heroes. We have rares, so this is a card called Primordial Force, who seems to have a very strong attack, but a weakness to Holy, which is quite interesting. He is also the box art for the booster box, I think. Let me just check. So that's kind of cool. I've just opened the... Yeah, that's right. So I've just opened the card that is the booster box art, which is quite good. I wonder that might be worth some money, but we're not going to worry too much about that now. Then we have uncommons, which are green, and some more commons. Yep. Okay, I mean, I'm really liking the art so far. There seems to be a good sort of varied mix of sort of grim fantasy and sort of well-drawn characters. There seems to be a good mix of abilities, just like looking, here's some search. This look at the top X cards of your timeline, put one into your thoughts and the rest into your memories. And the cost is X life, which is quite interesting, I think. So I guess memories is discard pile, top X, and thoughts is your hand, basically. That's just destroyed enchantment. Can't be targeted by spells. That's quite interesting. Can jump somewhere. I do like games that use space as an option, without requiring things like miniature painting. I am really not a miniature painter, so I'm never going to be in a situation where I am, where I'm painting miniatures and I'm really happy about it. So, there's another game I've been asked to look at called Legacies Allure, which I'll probably have a look at in a bit. And like, it uses a similar feature from what I've seen so far from the outside, where it uses cards on a playmat that lets you play the game without actually having to paint miniatures. And this is very much the same thing. So you're going to make an arena of 2 of these playmats, and I'm sure they'll have really nice proper cutout playmats. But you're going to make an arena of 2 of these playmats, which is going to be 6 squares across. Probably you can go along to the wall, so it's going to be 4 by 4 squares, so 8 squares in total. You're going to start at one side, they're going to start at the other, and you're kind of going to have a real life, well, not a real life, but like an actual physical movement game, which obviously a lot of people quite like because chess has been popular for a long time for various reasons. So this does actually look at first instincts like it's going to be quite an interesting game. It looks like it will have some depth to it. The abilities look quite interesting. You deal 2 air damage to a target in Gust's awareness. It's just like a spell. And then when you hit something with Gust, you can trigger to push them away. So that's kind of really interesting. And I played a bit of a game called Super Fantasy Brawl recently, which is kind of similar, but it's got miniatures. But a lot of the abilities have push, pull, if you pulled someone this far. And also been playing a lot of Gloomhaven, which has a lot of similar effects as well. So like my friend will put down a trap, and then because they put down a trap, I can pull people into it and deal them damage. And having that inside a card game with like competitive deck building seems interesting, but also kind of like daunting as well. Just because that's cool. So I just got the pack art rare now. So I've opened the box art rare from one of my packs, and I've got the pack art rare from the other one. I'm quite excited by that. No foils yet, which, I'm a little disappointed about. I do really love the foil, though the art is very good. This is kind of the antithesis of the other one that I opened, because the other one that I opened takes 1 extra damage from holy effects, and this one is, of course, a holy effect. Yeah, interesting. And only abilities marked as ranged can target it, which is kind of cool because it's always flying. That's nifty. So flight is a big thing then, because your creatures with flight can take up a spot that's occupied by another character, and you don't have to worry about occupying the same. That's cool. So that's what I'm kind of saying. I think my initial impressions are that this kind of tactical layer of gameplay is probably going to be quite interesting. I will have to set up properly to play some games, or maybe there's a TTS mod I can get some games in on there. But my first impressions are that this is a game I think I would like to try. It seems to have a lot of interesting mechanics and some good design. I think this starter box, I was initially a bit wary because I thought that it didn't have any way to learn to play it within the box, and that's just a big red flag for me. Your game should be teachable without a website. It should be, something you should be able to teach people how to play just by using the tools of the box. And if that wasn't the case, it would be a bit of a red flag for me in terms of this product. But actually, I will say that just this product seems very, very well designed. So if you are looking at Genesis, I would advise to check out the website. And I would say that this 2-player starter set does seem like a very good entry point into the game. And that's kind of my takeaway on that. I will do, because I feel like I've learned the gameplay now, which again, kind of what I get back to about Flesh and Blood is to teach someone how to play your game, especially if you want to be a competitive card game, should not take very long, right? And this is true of any good competitive card game. The teaching of how to play should be quite simple. So I can sum up how to play Genesis now after reading those cards that were in this box. Okay, you set up your arena, You put your champion on your arena. You build the deck out of 50 cards with matching symbols. You can't have more than a certain number of chi in your deck. That's easy enough, but in the starter set, it'll be sorted out for you. And then you spend mana from your champion to cast abilities, summon creatures, and try and attack your opponent. And everything that you play on the board can either move, move or do a main action like attack and do as many main actions as it want, or move twice. And I've basically just summarized the entire game in about 2 minutes. And that is one thing. So this series that I'm doing at the moment is very much first impressions. How well does your game teach me to play? How do I like the art? How does that initial starter experience feel to you as a new player? And how does that then lead into you playing more of this game? So initial impressions of Genesis, starter kit, excellent. Comes with playmats that'll help you with your layouts. Comes with cards that can teach you the game very, very quickly if you're familiar. Comes with links to YouTube videos that can, of course, teach you if you're less familiar with cards and you need more time to get involved in it. The cards look good. They're a bit light. They're not, I wouldn't say they're very, very good card stock, but that's okay. The art looks very good. All the symbols and like abilities and things like that look like they make sense. So the design is really good. Like all things like the font and stuff like that were all really clear to read. And also just like an ability just says everything in your awareness, as in everything you can see, right? That's fairly easy to telegraph. So if it says do 6 damage to something next to you, it's very easy to be like, okay, well, I move here and I'll do 6 damage to the thing next to me, right? And that's like, you know, that kind of intuitive level of gameplay is one thing that I'm really looking for when I'm doing these game reviews of the starter experience of a game. And we'll get into a proper review of this, and maybe I'll do this box opening of this beta set box that I've got here. And we'll do a proper review where I get someone to play with me, and then I will, maybe on TTS if there's a TTS mod, or I will sit down and sort of play with someone and then come back and report my findings, because I haven't got a rig yet for recording games. That's next on my to-do list. Maybe I should set up a Patreon and ask people to help me fund that rig, because it's quite expensive given all the cards that I have been buying. But, you know, that's something to consider. I would love to start reporting in-person games, especially sort of at tournaments I go to for Flesh and Blood, and of course other games that I play around the house with people and just with my friends and those kind of things. Stuff like this, where I'm trying new games and learning how to play them. If you like this video, let me know. If you would like to see more content where I look at card games that you haven't seen or maybe you're not aware of, do let me know as well. It is something that I'm quite passionate about, just in terms of myself as a player learning about and trying out new card games as they come out, seeing how they're different, seeing how they bring in new players. Are they competitive? Are they casual? Are they fun? You know, do they get your mind working? Do they have those really fun aspects to them? And I think that's just a big part of gaming for me. I mean, I love playing one game really, really well in something like Flesh and Blood, and I will probably only go to tournaments for one game. But I also just like having a lot of games around the house that I can, you know, take a rainy day and just play 6 or 7 games of. And if you see my gaming cupboard, which I'll show you guys at some point, you know, it has Arkham Horror, it has Ashes Reborn, it has Azul, it has Terraforming Mars, it has Race for the Galaxy. My house is full of board games, beyond just card games, that I really enjoy playing. But I just have this weakness for good card games that, you know, let you build a deck and let you get involved with stuff. It's one of the reasons I used to play Keyforge a little bit. As one of the reasons I bounced out of Keyforge was just I couldn't customize my deck. And I know it's one of the big selling propositions of the game, but ultimately it led to me being very frustrated, because I would open these decks that were almost good, and they were almost like, if they'd had like 2 or 3 more cards or one slightly better house, they would have been amazing. And I couldn't do anything about that, and that really frustrated me. So stuff like this, competitive card game, customizable deck, 2-player one-on-one, really fun, and I'll definitely be giving this one a try. Thanks for watching, and of course, if you like this video, please do like and subscribe. That really helps let me know that I'm doing a good job, which is all that really matters.